back, nerds. We got a request to talk about the Heralds of Galactus, and with all the excitement surrounding Fantastic Four First Steps, how could we refuse? So let's soar across the galaxy together and get into the 616 Heralds of Galactus. 10. The Fallen One. He was a herald to not only Galactus, but Thanos too. He was Galactus's very first herald, so he's kind of like the prototype, which means he's a little bit different than all the other heralds. Instead of being energized with the power cosmic, he got dark energy, the binding halo by which galaxies are made solvent, or whatever that means. Point is he was very powerful. He was so cruel that Galactus actually felt he had to imprison him though. The Fallen One would chase Galactus throughout the universe until Thanos got his hands on him and forced him to be his herald instead. The Fallen One did eventually fall, and his power was transferred to an urn. 9. Nova, but not the Nova Core Nova. This is Frankie Ray. She had fire abilities similar to the Human Torch, just on a slightly lower level. Not for long though, because she eventually became a herald for Galactus and everything was dialed up to 11. This benefited her and Galactus. Galactus had just experienced a major betrayal from a past herald, was in the market for a new one, and Frankie was eager to explore. Eventually, it took a toll on her mental health and she began hiding inhabited planets, leading to her being discharged as a herald. 8. Stardust. I'm obsessed with Stardust. They were originally a shapeless being called an ethereal, transforming into stardust. Their body is now composed of pure cosmic energy that can save them from almost anything. They did two things that no herald has done before, at least up until that point. 1. Given up their own race to Galactus, and 2. Fell in love with Galactus. Stardust was also able to escape from a black hole that they did open, but it is still pretty cool nonetheless. 9. Shalabal. Shalabal is having a moment in the sun right now thanks to Fantastic Four First Steps, and rightfully so because she was so cool in the movie. The scenes of her surfing in space? Unmatched. Anyways, she is quite powerful of course. In the film, we saw her escape from a black hole, but in the comics, she was able to restore an entire ecosystem with just a touch, and later she was able to wield a fusion of magic and tech called the Illuminatrix. She also has the power to cause a bunch of fans to just lose their minds simply by existing. 6. Connor Sims. Sims was Galactus's first herald of life. After the World Devourer was set free of his curse and became the Life Bringer, he encountered Connor Sims. Sims was a human turned unstable antimatter villain, Anti-Man. He sought to destroy the world as revenge for the average person's hateful intolerance. However, he was eventually redeemed and called upon by Galactus to help free eternity. The Sentry was apparently impressed by his powers, which is saying something considering everything that the Sentry has going on, but in the end, Sims ended up sacrificing himself to save the day. 5. The Human Torch. Johnny Storm was once a Galactus herald, and he was so powerful that he reduced Galactus back to his human form. After a major battle on Earth, Galactus claimed Johnny as his new herald, but Johnny didn't really want the gig and decided to spend his time and use his powers to analyze Galactus to see how to defeat the Devourer. With the help of his team and some friends, Johnny was able to successfully reduce Galactus back to his humanoid form. Eventually, Johnny's power cosmic abilities faded and things went back to how they were before. 4. Airwalker. This herald could easily be Galactus's favorite, and I say that because when the original Airwalker was eliminated, Galactus made a perfect robot replica of him. Sure, Airwalker wasn't as intelligent or well known as some of the other heralds, but he had a love of space and actually wanted to hear all of Galactus's stories about the universe. And for a being that's been around for like billions of years like Galactus has, it must feel good to have someone actually care to hear about your adventures no matter how gruesome. 3. The Herald of Thunder, Thor. Just when you thought Thor couldn't get any cooler or more powerful, he does. In order to fight off a new villain, the Black Winter, Galactus was told by the Black Winter that Thor would be his undoing. And you keep your friends close but your enemies closer. To keep an eye on Thor, he made him his new Herald of Thunder. The pair had to work together to defeat this Black Winter by having Galactus eat 5 particular planets, and Thor working to evacuate those planets in time. Thor led the Devourer to the planets, but it was revealed that Galactus was actually a herald of the evil himself and just didn't want to be anymore. Thor, angry, stripped the space god of his new power and used him as an explosive to defeat this new enemy. 2. Norrinrad. Of course the Silver Surfer is here. Norrinrad is definitely the most famous Galactus herald, believed to be one of the most powerful beings in the universe. He often holds back his power, and with the right energy boost, it's estimated that he could single-handedly destroy entire galaxies. As his regular self, he was very intelligent, which often does help him in his herald duties. It's hard to beat the Silver Surfer, but he isn't number 1. Morg is, and that is because Morg is absolutely ruthless and doesn't have the weakness bonus that the Silver Surfer has compassion. Norrin Radd has shown a few times that he doesn't love his line of work. However, Morg is all in. Like, this is his dream job. Unlimited power, and he gets to cause the suffering of billions. That's everything he wants and more. Now, there was another Herald like that named Terrax that didn't make this list, so sorry to him, but unlike Terrax, Morg was loyal to Galactus. It took 5 former Heralds to take Morg down, but it didn't matter in the end because Galactus just resurrected him. He's cheated death quite a few times until recently when the Phoenix came by and encased him in metal.
Number 10. Destroyer. Destroyer is a reanimated suit of armor that was given to Galactus by Thor, when Firelord no longer wanted to serve as one of Galactus' heralds. Galactus imbued the armor with a small amount of life and had it stand in to replace Firelord. Destroyer only had life while Galactus willed it though. Ultimately, it was Loki who took the armor back to enchant and use for himself. While Galactus was busy dealing with the High Evolutionary, Loki secretly teleported the armor back to Asgard, animated it himself, and sent it after Thor, unsurprisingly. Number 9. Johnny Storm. Galactus forcefully took Johnny Storm as his herald while he had his powers swapped with his sister Sue. Their powers had been swapped to protect her from Zeus, who wanted her dead as her powers were the only thing interfering with him being able to cloak planets in order to protect them from Galactus. While swapping their powers did succeed in deceiving Zeus, Galactus was not fooled, forcing Johnny with invisibility powers to become his herald, allowing Galactus to use him to actually get around the cloaking, so he could still find and devour planets. Despite this, Johnny still did his best to protect as many planets as he possibly could. But you know, you gotta feed Galactus something, right? Number 8. Dazzler. While Dazzler's time as a herald was short-lived, her being granted some power cosmic definitely made for a neat read. Dazzler has always been a mutant who has been underrated due to her disco-inspired look and light powers, but the power cosmic showed us just how powerful her abilities can be. She was recruited by Galactus to rescue his herald Terrax, whom Galactus thought had been lost, when in reality Terrax was simply hiding from him. Ooh. Dazzler was able to use her powers to defeat Terrax, knocking him out and returning him to Galactus. Pleased, Galactus returned her to her apartment in New York, allowing her to return to her regular life as a performer/mutant. Is that a regular life? I guess for Dazzler it's a regular life. Number 7. Terrax the Tamer. Terrax was originally Tyros, who hailed from the planet Burj. He was a power-hungry and violent dictator of a small city-state on the planet. When Galactus agreed to help the Fantastic Four, he sent them out on a mission in exchange for his help that would allow him to recruit Tyros as one of his heralds. Granting him the power cosmic, he was transformed, much like Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer, had been, into Terrax the Tamer. Galactus hoped that Terrax's lack of moral code would make him an even better herald than some of the ones he had had previously. Number 6. Firelord. Piraeus was curious about the captain of his ship, who had been abducted. He suspected Galactus and so attempted to track him down, but it turned out that Galactus found him first. Piraeus suggested all crew abandon ship and surrendered himself to Galactus. His ship was destroyed, but Galactus decided to save him. In exchange for information on what happened to his former captain, he agreed to become Galactus' herald. It turned out his captain Lan had also become a Herald of Galactus, going by the name of Airwalker. After being told this and granted power cosmic, Piraeus adopted the name Firelord and had his memories wiped, going on to serve Galactus for quite some time. Number 5. Morg the Executioner. Morg was granted the position of Executioner after he turned his back on his people and his cause. He had been part of a rebellion that was defeated and was offered one last chance to serve the queen he had rebelled against. He agreed. Following being appointed as the Executioner, he was tasked with killing his former comrades, which he did without hesitation. Galactus was impressed by his lack of fear when he first encountered Morg and decided to make him one of his heralds, admiring his lack of remorse. Galactus even granted him enough of the power cosmic for him to rival Silver Surfer in terms of power levels. Number 4. Nova. Frankie Ray was a normal girl until she was exposed to chemicals that granted her powers similar to those of the Human Torch. She became Galactus' herald and adopted the name Nova in order to save the planet Earth when he came to devour it, excited about the prospect of space adventures. Who wouldn't be? Originally, she was a very loyal herald and even came to love Galactus. Nova considered that it could actually be possible that Galactus reciprocated her feelings as well. Is it weird that I ship that? Eventually, however, she would get closer to Silver Surfer than Galactus and even end up betraying and lying to him. Naughty naughty. Number 3. Airwalker. Gabriel Lan was captain of the Xandarian explorer the Way Opener. Searching for a replacement replacement for the Silver Surfer, Galactus reached out to Lan, who he had deemed worthy of serving him. Galactus abducted Lan, who was seduced by the idea of power and adventure offered to him. He accepted and became a loyal herald to Galactus, and a friend, adopting the name Airwalker. Galactus was so fond of Airwalker that he had his consciousness downloaded into an android body, thus resurrecting him after he had perished. Airwalker had sacrificed his life for Galactus at that time, so understandably Galactus was like, I kinda wanna keep you around, you're pretty cool. Number 2. Stardust. Stardust was a cosmic being who was non-corporeal. It chose to serve as a Herald of Galactus and was very loyal. At one point Galactus claimed he no longer needed Stardust services, having Silver Surfer to rely on at the time. In an effort to help Galactus with his hunger, Stardust offered up the remnants of his race to Galactus before parting with him for the time being. This floored Galactus, as none of his heralds had really made such an offer before. Most of them were about preserving their home and their people, as opposed to offering them up to him. Number 1. Silver Surfer. The most iconic of them all, Silver Surfer became a quick comic book favorite. Norrin Radd sacrificed his own happy life on his planet with his true love to protect it from Galactus' hunger, and agreed to serve as his herald. Jack Kirby's unique idea for the character actually came out of him being tired of drawing spaceships and typical cosmic nonsense. Instead, he wanted to mix it up and decided to put the Silver Surfer on a flying surfboard instead, allowing him to eternally be the most beach-ready cosmic character in the Marvel Universe.
We start off our story today in the 2020 volume of Thor, written by Donny Cates, as Thor has become king of Asgard, taking the place of his father, Odin. Thor is about to give a lovely little inaugural speech when out of literally nowhere, the world devourer Galactus comes crashing down onto Asgard, frostbitten and begging for help from the new Allfather. He claims that the Star Plague, the Great Black Winter, is coming. In response to this, Thor does, honestly, the smart thing and calls together a collection of the Heralds of Galactus to figure out what in the damned Helheim a Star Plague is. But it isn't until Galactus' main herald, the Silver Surfer, shows up that we actually get actual answers. Now, Silver Surfer is actually no longer silver here. Following the events of Silver Surfer Black, he is now basically obsidian colored. It's pretty cool, but not important at all to this story. Surfer informs Thor that the Black Winter is essentially the end of everything, and the Black Winter was the cataclysm that ended the previous iteration of the cosmos where Galactus came from before he was Galactus. Galactus eats planets, where the Black Winter eats realities. Despite that though, Galactus survived the Black Winter the first time, and then when he fell to Asgard, it was after surviving the Black Winter again by the skin of his teeth. Surfer is sure that Galactus is the only one who can face the Black Winter, and for that purpose, he has a plan. The Surfer has been aware of 5 unique planets throughout the universe that, if consumed by Galactus, will give him a level of power he has never had before, and that the Surfer had been hiding these planets from his master for a very long time, and still continues to hide their exact whereabouts. The Silver Surfer and Thor decide to evacuate these planets of their populations to allow Galactus to feed on them and become powerful enough to face the Black Winter. Before they actually set out though, they seek out Galactus' say on the matter. Galactus then gives us a little bit more information about the Winter. Basically, whenever an individual looks upon Black Winter or Galactus, each individual will perceive them differently, as they are beings of such astronomical importance and power that it's impossible to comprehend what they truly are. But unlike Galactus, when one looks into the Black Winter, they also see their own real, true demise. When Galactus was just Galen and he hadn't experienced the cosmic wonder of being Galactus, he saw nothing but a massive black void of nothingness, as he wasn't meant to pass away yet. But when he escaped this time, he saw one thing. He saw Thor. So, out of nowhere, he begins to instill Thor with the power cosmic in a blinding flash of light, saying that if Thor is to be his end, then together they will face the Black Winter, and when it is done, he wants Thor close so they can have some words. And with that, he turns this already insanely powerful All-Father Thor into the new Herald of Galactus. Kicking off the second issue of the story, we see a world world very similar to our own as it begins to succumb to the Black Winter's destruction of its universe, with black snow falling that begins to wipe away everyone and everything it touches. The heroes of this world, a red and blue sun god, a god of emerald light, a god of dark perhaps, a god of the ocean, and a god of speed, they all rush to save their world, passing by a big building with a golden globe on top of it. It's the Justice League. It is totally a reference to DC and the Justice League, but they are all completely helpless to stop the destruction of not just their planet, but as we zoom out, their entire galaxy, their entire universe is being enveloped by the indescribably massive hand of the Black Winter as it consumes that universe. That may be one of my favorite openings to a Marvel comic, but alas, this all takes place in the Eye of Thor as we see he has arrived at the first of the 5 enchanted planets, Clips, with Galactus in tow. Thor, being the hero we expect, tries to deny Galactus this planet as it is inhabited by an actual civilization, but Galactus is a hungry boy and he won't let a herald talk to him like that, so he attacks Thor, sending him crash landing onto the planet. Unfortunately for Galactus though, Thor is not just his herald, he is the god king of Asgard, and even without the power cosmic, he wields astronomical levels of power, which he proves by sending his hammer straight at Galactus, destroying the Devourer's hand, and then calls it back, doing the same to Galactus' knee. Unfortunately, the denizens of the planet, understandably, not having any idea what the hell is going on, begin to attack Thor. Being distracted with the people of Clips, Thor cannot stop Galactus from beginning his feast. In a last-ditch effort, he sends his ravens, Hogan and Munin, out to Sif, who has taken the place of Heimdall on Asgard, and she opens the Bifrost up to transport the Clipsians, that's what I'm gonna call them, to Asgard for safety. As Galactus feeds off of the surface energies of the planet, decimating any and all life that presides there, like animals and plants, he grows greedy and hungers for more and more power to the point that he ignores Thor, who had promised to restore life to the planet, and Galactus completely destroys and consumes Clips in an absolutely massive explosion. Now, sufficiently powered up by one of the 5 planets, Galactus makes a move to attack Thor once again, but before he can, he is attacked with a volley of explosive ammunition as Thor is struck across the face and a hammer flies right back into the hands of none other than Beta Ray Bill. Now, Beta Ray Bill is no pushover. When he first showed up after the destruction of his planet at the hands of Galactus, he was worthy of Thor's hammer, and he even defeated the God of Thunder in battle. That was then, and this is now. Thor was just Thor then. Now he is Thor and the King of Asgard and a Herald of Galactus, but Bill believes Thor to be simply corrupted by the World Devourer, and he refuses to back down. Charging at Thor, all it takes is a simple backhand from the God of Thunder to send Bill flying, crash landing on Clips' moon, which is being bombarded by the debris of Clips itself. Now this fight goes on for a little while, with Thor pretty much just trying to get Bill to chill the heck out, and also fighting off Galactus, who is still trying to say he controls Thor as his herald. Bill will not give up on what he thinks is a corrupted Thor, and their fight is a one-sided slog, up until Thor throws his hammer and Bill catches it, holding on tight to keep Thor from recalling it. So instead, Thor calls Stormbreaker, Bill's hammer, to him, and with it, he lands a massive blow against Bill, who defends with Mjolnir. Now the attack from Thor shatters Stormbreaker as it hits Mjolnir in a massive blast that knocks Bill down and keeps him there. Unfortunately, Bill has a big old horse mouth and he keeps opposing Thor. Before Thor can land a final definitive blow though, he is interrupted by the Bifrost carrying Sif, who stands also opposed to Thor, defending Bill from her own Allfather. In true Sif fashion, she gives Thor a good old earful about how he is being a horse's ass. Now, personally, I think Thor is doing what he thinks is best, allying with Galactus, but almost taking the life of Bill, that is a bit too far. Sif hasn't come to fight Thor, simply to bring Bill back to Asgard under her protection and to yell at Thor. Thor, being all butthurt, throws his hammer and Sif simply opens the Bifrost, sending the hammer to Jotunheim, leaving Thor speechless. Now, this doesn't matter to the story at all, but the hammer lands at the feet of Loki, who is the current king of Jotunheim, and he actually picks it up. Before Thor recalls it, of course. Now, while the hammer is flying back to Thor and he just got scolded by Sif, Galactus comes crashing down, being bored of their little argument, and brings the Thunder God back on track as they need to go to the other 4 planets still before the Black Winter arrives. With this, Sif and Beta Ray Bill head back to Asgard, and Thor calls down a massive bolt of lightning that strikes Galactus in the chest and then strikes Thor granting him the power cosmic that he just stole from Galactus, which is awesome. They now set off to consume the other planets. The first they arrive at is called Silas, an uninhabitable and minuscule mesoplanet, homeworld of these jellyfish-like aliens. The planet was the former home of a race of long-past war sorcerers with their burial grounds rich in decomposing enchantments. The second world is Io-X4, which was the homeworld of these really cool bear-like animals gifted with telekinesis and precognition, and because of the latter, they were already ready to evacuate their planet when Thor showed up. The next would be Vanish 4002, which was an ancient supergiant with a semi-sentient core of molten blood, and homeworld of humanoid insect aliens. The semi-sentient core of the planet gave its life freely to aid in the fight against the Black Winter. Now, all three of these planets had their inhabitants evacuated to Asgard by Thor before their destruction, which fed into the power of Galactus. The fifth and final planet, however, is known as Cryo. This planet is home to an extremely advanced species who knew of the coming threat and in response had assembled their armies to aid Thor and Galactus, but that's not how this works. As Thor arrives on the planet and tries to convince its leader to evacuate to Asgard, all of a sudden Galactus begins to devour the planet prematurely because the Black Winter has arrived. As the Black Winter begins to destroy this world just like it did with the not Justice League planet, Thor rips off a part of his cape to cover his eyes so as to not see his own true demise. As the denizens of the planet perish and as Galactus continues to consume the planet, Thor wields the power cosmic alongside his own all-father powers and channels it into a massive lightning blast that could shatter entire continents, which he sends into the center of the Black Winter's storm. This attack does nothing but buy Galactus 14 more seconds to consume the planet, which he does, destroying it like he did the others. As Thor vows vengeance for the people of Cryo, both he and the fully powered Galactus face the Black Winter mano a dos. As the fight goes on, Galactus and Thor face the obsidian cosmic death storm, doing what they can, and the Black Winter begins to speak, calling Thor the All Butcher and the End God, and taunting Thor. With a blast, it removes Thor's blindfold as it also manages to take Galactus out of the fight. Now, with Thor alone, he is unable to stop the Black Winter from entering his mind and soul. Transported to a massive place inside the Black Winter, or maybe inside his own mind, we don't know, Thor is faced by the images of his greatest villains. Gorr the God Butcher, the classic Loki, Mangog, Surtur, Apocalypse, Mephisto, a bunch of villains. They're all here, and the Black Winter is using their shapes to pile on Thor until it takes on the shape of the World Serpent, all while taunting Thor with his own passing. On his last legs, Thor channels the rage of the God Kings that came before him, and through Mjolnir, he unleashes the God Blast. Now, Thor knows it will not defeat the Black Winter, but he does at least free both himself and Galactus. Now, the Black Winter manifests itself in the image of a dark version of Thor and starts his villain monologue, because everyone's gotta have one. Though this isn't what you would expect, the Black Winter reveals that Galactus has been lying. The Black Winter is not here to destroy this universe, hinting at an apparently darker fate than that. Instead, he reveals that he's actually here to retrieve his own Herald, Galactus himself. It's the reason that Galen was turned into Galactus and was saved from the ending of the previous universe in order to become the Herald for the Black Winter and to become his mini-me. Immediately, Galactus combats this and tries to attack, but is swatted away to some barren moon by the Winter. As Galen begins to beg Thor to act, Thor does by calling down lightning on Galactus, telling him to stay down. Thor explains that he is the only thing standing between the Black Winter and Galactus, and that he isn't done with Galactus just yet. Galactus is more powerful than he has ever been, but Thor rightly responds that he allowed Galactus to have that power to steal it. Galactus has played Thor, the God of Thunder, King of Asgard, ruler of the 10 realms, like a pawn. And then Thor takes all the power that Galactus gained from consuming the 5 planets just as he took the power cosmic before. Then, in the name of all the planets Galactus has destroyed and the ones he still threatens, and for Asgard itself, Thor, with an absolutely massive amount of lightning and power, sentences Galactus to the afterlife. But he is still not done with with Galactus. The Black Winter thanks Thor and goes to take Galen and leave this universe, but Thor ain't allowing that. Using all the full might of the power cosmic, the energy of 100,000 devoured worlds, all the power he just took from Galactus, plus all the power he already has, he turns Galactus into an absolutely massive lightning explosion that is felt throughout the universe that reduces Galactus to nothing but his remaining armor and reduces the Black Winter to a single snowflake. It falls slowly into Thor's hand, admitting defeat, and offers him a vision of his true demise. Thor accepts, only to see a vision of Thanos wielding Mjolnir encrusted with the Infinity Gems in his right hand, a black gauntlet weapon with possibly a new Infinity Gem on the other hand, and leading an army of what looks like the Marvel zombies.